Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Chavaitakena Yopakarottam Pravaramurina Patanjali Patanjali Ranatosmi Stuve Patanjalim Vyasam Shankaram Chamanithayam Kartra Sutrasya Bhashyasya Krama Vivaranasya Cha. So we are continuing discussion on the 20th Sutra of Samadhi Pada, concentration. The sutra we already mentioned is Shraddha, Virya, Smrti, Samadhi, Prajna, Purvaka, Iteration. That is according to the yoga teachers. The highest Samadhi, Samprajnata Samadhi, according to some authors and according to some others like Vyasa, Sasamprajnata Samadhi, it comes through these qualities or accompanied by these great qualities. So they are outlined: Shraddha, Virya, Smrti, Samadhi, Prajna. Faith, energy, memory, concentration and illumination. Now this is a simple, very simple translation, but these words have much greater significance than the literal meaning implies. So that's a very important. It is considered to be one of the most important sutras in the Patanjali system, not only from a Yoga Sutra point of view, but also from Buddhist point of view. In fact, this sutra is supposed to be the first reference to what we call mindfulness in the entire spiritual literature. So you find there are 5 characteristics I mentioned here. They are Shraddha, Virya, Smrti, Samadhi, Prajna. Now, all these 5 words have got some well-defined meanings in language and literature, in dictionary. But in the yoga system and also in Buddhist Vipassana mindfulness system, it has got much deeper significance. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are different commentators on the Yoga Sutras who take different views on this sutra. For example, according to Vyasa, the most well-known commentator, this sutra is a direct reference to Asamprajnata Yoga. According to Bhojya, who is the author of Rajya Martanda, this sutra is a reference to Samprajnata Yoga, Samprajnata Samadhi. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this sutra contains the first reference to we call mindfulness or vipassana meditation or awareness. If you trace the concept of mindfulness, normally scholars trace this to one well-known sutra. What you call, in fact, not a sutra, it's called sutta, which means a hymn. S-U-K-T-A-M, suttam in Sanskrit, which is a diluted. So, it comes in the Buddhist tradition. It is called Smrti Upathana Sutta in the Buddhist tradition. And in the original Samyukta Nikaya, it comes as Anapana Samyukta. Digha Nikaya, which is the first, supposed to be the genesis of this in Buddhist tradition, is called Mahasati Upathana Sutta. So Sati is the Pali equivalent of Smrti, which is used here. So Smrti becomes Sati in Pali. Pali or Prakrit was the vernacular, which was a primitive form of Sanskrit. What is called a kind of unrefined, non-standardized, so to speak, version of Sanskrit was Prakrit, which is a vernacular. It did not have its own script. So the script they used during Buddha's time was the script of Pali. But these forms evolved much later. They are all later compared to Sanskrit. So the Sanskrit version is called Smrti Suktam. It becomes Mahasatipattana Sutta. This is in Pali language. It is the genesis of Vipassana meditation. Mindfulness, especially breathing, is synonymous with Vipassana system of meditation. Now, there is a great controversy among scholars whether the mindfulness is of Patanjali tradition or Buddha tradition. As the mindfulness as we understand today is certainly more directly linked to Buddha tradition, especially the Digha Nikaya, in which Mahasatipattana Sutta comes. In Buddha's famous discourse on Smrti or Sati as in Pali, which literally means memory, recollection, but in spiritual tradition it means mindfulness. So, this mindfulness is one of the 5 important characteristics which automatically linked a spiritual seeker to asamprajnata samadhi, the highest concentration. That's why Buddhist scholars insist that this kind of concentration helps you to get out of this trap of what we call psychological automisms. I mean the automatic recollection of memories which sometimes can become a source of serious psychological torment. So we remember many things which we don't want. So how to get out of that memory and to develop a skill to remember what will be useful, spiritually useful to our life. So the first attempt is to get out of this trap of psychological automisms. From the subconscious level, impressions, memories, ideas, recollections, all will come to the surface of mind. So you have to get out of this. And then you should be able to recollect, remember what is auspicious for spiritual life through this process of mindfulness, through this process of remaining in the state of inner awareness. That means when we are aware of where our mind is moving, then mind slowly gets disciplined. At the grossest level, this is sometimes done by training trainees to follow the movement of the breath, because when you focus on the movement of the breath, your mind is distracted away from its normal automisms, which means emergence of accumulated memories to the surface of the mind without any effort, which, as I mentioned earlier, could often become a torment. So when you are aware, when you focus on the movement of the breath, mind is distracted, drawn away from these tormenting memories, and mind becomes calm and quiet. And when you reach an advanced state, which of course is very rarely the purpose of the commercialized kind of mindfulness training, if you don't mind using the term. But it's a natural destination. The goal of this, as mentioned in Buddhist tradition, was to transcend the mind. But here, mind is disciplined so that it gives you a peace of mind. That's all. So mental recollections, memories can be a great blessing for a yogi who is endowed with Smrti. So Smrti is the Sanskrit technical word used in the sutra. So the sutra, as you remember, is Samadhipada, sutra number 20th. For those who reach the highest Samprajnata Samadhi or Samprajnata Samadhi, according to different authors, practically saying these characteristics become automatic because that sort of higher concentration will come through this Shraddha, Virya, Smrti, Samadhi, Prajna. Faith, energy, memory, concentration and illumination. These are all very, very superficial English translations which we have to go deeper into understand what it actually implies. So the importance of the sutra would be better appreciated if you remember one verse in the Bhagavad Gita in the 15th chapter, Matta Smrti Jnanam Apohanamcha, where Lord Krishna says in the 15th chapter, Smrti means memory, Jnana means knowledge, Apohanam means forgetfulness. So, forgetfulness is actually a great refuge for people suffering from tormenting memories, these automatisms. But that kind of forgetfulness doesn't take you to mindfulness. It is a disciplined practice of Shraddha and of course Virya, which take you to the highest level of this Smrti. So we will come to that, mindfulness, we will come to that. Before that we have to discuss the first two important characteristics, Shraddha and Virya. So Shraddha is also very important. Shraddha, as you mentioned, is faith, is mentioned here, faith. But Shraddha is not just faith. It has got a very deep meaning. What it means is clarity of mind. That's what it means, Shraddha. So when you pursue a path or when you study something, when you practice spiritual discipline, you need a kind of inner tranquility, clarity of mind in order to be able to continue that practice. So there should be a crystal clear concept in our mind as to what we are doing. So that's why it is called, according to Vyasa, the great commentator of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, is called Chetasaha Samprasadaka. It means when our mind is at peace with yourself, when we are at peace with ourselves, that may be a kind of Shraddha. How do we do that? One important method is to evolve a sense of sanctity, sacredness of what we are doing. And that is very important. If we can develop a kind of sanctity, sacredness of what we are doing or what we are studying, immediately the mind assumes a very intense identity with what we are doing. See, let's say a mother looking after a baby is a very, very ordinary action. Right? The baby is very small, so it requires a lot of tenderness. With delicate care, which you find when a spiritually enlightened person tries to pray, or when he recites a hymn, a prayer with great concentration, it is done with a sense of sanctity and sacredness. So when you do something with a sense of sanctity and sacredness, it will help you to do what you are doing with a relaxed mind. What you are doing will be burden to you. That's the most visible effect of bringing this sacredness element to what we are doing. Otherwise it becomes a burden. For a priest who is doing his priestly work in a mechanical manner, priestcraft can be a terrible burden. Apparently it is a sacred thing that a priest is doing, worshipping in a temple or a church or any place of worship. Apparently it automatically implies something sacred, but it can become a terribly mechanical, lifeless, automated work. There can be burden. For an advanced spiritual seeker, even doing the so-called secular work can be like prayer. So you can spiritualize the secular and also we can secularize the spiritual. Both happens. So that's an important thing, important quality necessary to develop this clarity of mind. When that sacredness or sanctity is brought in, then we have no conflict. And when there's no conflict, mind is clear, mind is peaceful, mind is tranquil. It is called Chitta Prasada. So that's Vyasa's definition of Shraddha. It has got a very deep significance. So frequently, the effect of what we study often depends upon the sense of sanctity with which we approach the subject that we are studying. Apart from the visible effect of what we do, it will leave in our mind another invisible effect. We feel, oh, I'm doing the right thing. So that inner feeling, conviction gives a state of prasada, means mind becomes calm and quiet and clear. And Vyasa, going beyond that, trying to explain this Shraddha element, says, a very interesting statement in Vyasa, Sahi Jananiva Kalyani Yoginam Padi. So Vyasa compares this Shraddha to a loving mother. For a yogi, Shraddha is like a blessed mother who protects you. Yoga practice or any spiritual undertaking, even an attempt to study a scripture, it doesn't give much of an entertainment, nothing sensational. It requires a lot of Shraddha, which is normally we have a natural tendency to be drawn to things which will titillate our senses, which will entertain our mind and senses, something very wonderful, Yogi. You can see the huge overcrowded halls where different kinds of entertainments are going on. So it is not for Chitta Prasada they are doing. There is no need of Chitta Prasada because the senses automatically get drawn towards those things. But to study yoga, to practice meditation, and to practice spiritual life in a serious manner, you need something to sustain. A car cannot move without fuel. So if you want to continue in our spiritual efforts, which may not be very entertaining or very sensational experience, we need something to keep going. And what is that? This inner prasada, an inner tranquility, peace of mind. So that is its own benefit. That's why Vyasa says, this Shraddha, when it becomes a sense of sanctity, sacredness, and strong faith that this is my path will protect you, will guide you, and keep you going in the path of yoga. Sometimes it can also act as a very sincere interest. Sincere interest is called, so according to this, some of these other commentators will use the word abhiruchi. Abhiruchi actually means strong. The ruchi means desire, interest, and abhi is a preposition, so it makes it earnest, sincere interest. Vijnana Bhikshu, who incidentally was supposed to be a Buddhist, he also explains what it is Shraddha. This Shraddha has got a great spiritual significance, psychological significance, not only in the practice of yoga, but in whatever we do. We can eliminate many of the problems like conflict, doubts, and many other distracting problems in life if we can learn, if we can teach ourselves to look upon what we are doing as something sacred, as something intensely linked to a higher idea. So that's why Vijnana Bhikshu says, Priti yogo me bhuya iti abhilasha. So this yoga is my path. So a strong desire, the word desire is used here. That desire doesn't mean the desire for sense objects. The same word can mean different things. See, if you have a strong desire to do something wonderful, something noble, something spiritual, there also you use the word desire. But that desire is different from the word desire that we use in the context of desire for enjoyments, etc. So Buddha had a big desire, if you mean. Christ had a big desire to purge the sins of mankind, if you believe. That is a sin desire. Before that, every believing Christian believes that Christ had a big desire. God sent His own Son after the great desire, love for mankind. They also use the word desire. It's totally different from what the word implies in the ordinary human interactions. So, if a yoga practitioner, a spiritual seeker, develops a desire for something sacred, something higher, something noble, it also can be Shraddha. Because that strong desire for something noble, something that will take you to a higher level of spiritual realization, will help you to conserve your energy and to focus on your energy resources, psychological energy, psychic energy. It's called Virya. We are going to discuss that subject. Virya means psychic energy. The sanctified, refined psychic energy is called Virya. We will discuss that in the coming, when we discuss that part of the sutra. So, that's desire for something noble, so something higher, something spiritual, something transcendental, will help us to focus on our energy resources on one point, to focus everything on what we are doing. Now, this is also one aspect of Shraddha. So, Shraddha conserves our energy resources, helps us to focus energy in one noble spiritual direction, and also helps us to evolve a sense of sanctity, a sacredness of what we are doing, and also it helps us a proper direction. Sometimes called Viveka Khyadi Yoga Khanda, it is called, an intense longing. Again, it's something not very different again, like a strong, noble desire to practice yoga. So all these constitute what actually the word Shraddha implies. That's an important point to remember. Vivekananda in one of his lectures said that the word Shraddha cannot be translated into English. He had no quarrel with English, he was a past master of the English language. But Swamiji said that the word Shraddha cannot be translated. Because of the deep, loaded spiritual implications, the word will defy your effort to translate that into any language. That's what he meant by the statement. So that's what's called Shraddha. Of course, this Shraddha, as I mentioned earlier, it will also provide you, it equips you, it enables you to face obstacles in spiritual life. That's also very important. So when we do something, when we feel this is a noble thing that we are doing, and it will take us to a higher level of spiritual progress, and again it is something sacred, then that will help us to face the obstacles. If you read, well, I am taking examples from contemporary history. Of course not contemporary, rather from the ecclesiastical history of Christian saints. If you read the writings of Mother Teresa d'Avila, even maybe somebody like Don Bosco, who was the one who started a new movement by starting polytechnics to train children in the streets. Orphan children were collected by him and he trained them to develop their skills, mechanical skills, so that they will earn their livelihood. They were wandering the streets in 19th century Italy, and they were exploited by the industrialists, business people, and these urchins, these orphan children, boys. So this Christian father, St. Don Bosco, he was a Catholic father. He got a vision of some kind of a calling from God. That's what he believed of Jesus, and he started a movement to train them all in some mechanical skills. And then that's how he started a new movement. He had to face a lot of difficulties, a lot of persecutions. So, Shraddha, or the idea that what you are doing is something spiritual, something related to God, something sacred, something which is a sanctity about it. That's what enables a spiritual seeker in facing obstacles, what we call in Sanskrit vignas, obstacles in spiritual life. If you read the history of how these Vedas were preserved, then Max Muller has written extensively on these subjects. Max Muller, Winternis, Kohlbrug, Keith, many of the German Indologists wrote extensively on the subject of this ancient Vedic literature, how it was preserved. It's of no earthly benefit from a purely utilitarian point of view. You get up early morning, 3 o'clock, and take bath in cold water, study, repeating the Vedas for 5, 6, 8 hours, and sometimes in the more orthodox circles for 15 hours a day. Unless you go crazy, you should be something superhuman. So what enabled these people to go on doing this for not centuries, thousands of years? Because they considered this as something sacred. That's how it is being explained, including Yoga Sutra and all this. All these commentators, whether you Vyasa, Bhoja, Vijnana Bhikshu, or all these great commentators who wrote commentaries on Yoga Sutras, they belong to the link, the succession of great teachers and students who continued all the way from Patanjali's time, who memorized and who studied, again memorized, and again wrote commentaries, and again studied. So they did this thinking that this is something sacred. Otherwise you won't be able to face the obstacles in spiritual life. So it is this Shraddha that enables a spiritual seeker, a practitioner of higher yoga, to face obstacles in spiritual life. And as I mentioned, even in the lives of the Christian mystics who were persecuted, many of them got recognition, got only post-modern recognition. They could face all these obstacles mostly because they had a faith, Shraddha. It is something sacred. So they attach sanctity to what they were doing, what they were teaching, etc. So the next important characteristic is the Virya. That's his next. The sutra is very important from Buddhist perspective and also from yoga perspective. And that's why many of the controversies that you find among the comparative, scholars of comparative philosophy, whether mindfulness is from Patanjali tradition, from Patanjali yoga tradition, or from Buddhist tradition. So that shows the importance of this sutra. In fact, in a way, what this sutra implies as an appeal and significance to all traditions, all spiritual seekers, no matter what tradition they are born into. So the next important is Virya is called. Actually, what it implies is a kind of psychic energy or enthusiasm for spiritual practice. So even in this context, the word could have a very, very gross meaning. It could mean strength, vigor. It doesn't mean that the world's strongest man will be able to practice yoga. So the psychic energy that enables a person to keep a vigorous Shraddha, faith in what he is doing. This is the real meaning of Virya, the second characteristics. So these characteristics become the natural route for a spiritual seeker to reach asamprajnata samadhi. And for a spiritual seeker who has reached the samadhi level, these characteristics become well established in these characteristics. These characteristics will become natural to a higher yogi, and they become the path through which a yogi reaches this level of samadhi. So this part of the sutra is related to another sutra, which again the sadhana pada you find 38th sutra, Brahmacharya Pradisthaya Virya. The word is used here also, means continence of pure life. Alone can give a person the psychic energy, which alone can enable a person to continuously practice yoga. Of course, there are different interpretations, that's it. Pakshyami angani te samyak itha purvam mayasudam samahidamana gargi rishivit sagatad gunam. It's a very interesting dialogue between Yajnavalkya and Gargi. Yajnavalkya was a great philosopher, and Gargi was an equally great philosopher, who both are mentioned in the Bhagavad Upanishad. Yamascha niyamaschaiva asanam cha tathaiva cha pranayamastatha gargi pratyaharasya dharana dhyanam samadhiredani yugangani virangani. It's a famous book from Yoga Yajnavalkya, it is called. A discussion of yoga between Yajnavalkya and Gargi. So these characteristics can be strengthened by constant practice of meditation in solitude. That is an important point mentioned in the interpretations. And this Shraddha can be developed only by looking upon yoga as a means and also as a goal. So one should not be deviated from the path by looking for recognition, and one should not worry if you are not recognized, and one should not become jubilant when you are recognized. So there is a very interesting aspect about this. So it means asammana tapo vruddhi sammana tapakshaya. It's a very interesting psychological mechanism. If you are not honored, then you are spiritually enriched. If you are given too much honor, then you become spiritually impoverished. How do you explain this? In spiritual life, if you get too much of honor, too much of recognition, if you are not well established, if you are not advanced enough in spiritual life, there is always a distant and remote possibility of such a seeker who has not reached the goal yet. The seeker losing his path if he gets too much of recognition, because that will spiritually impoverish you. So recognition and honor impoverish you. If you are not honored, then it will spiritually strengthen you, enrich you, because recognition takes a small fraction of your spiritual wealth. If somebody honors you, then he takes away a small fraction of your spiritual wealth. If somebody dishonors you, then actually he is your best friend. You find such ideas in the lives of many mystics, in Vedic Hindu tradition and also in the Christian tradition. You find this. So when you are suffering for Christ, this idea is coming. I am not talking about ecclesiastical hierarchy, I am talking about the mystical tradition. There are two different streams in spiritual life. In mystical tradition you find the great mystics, the more, when the fire is already burning at stake, then the mystic is very happy about it. When they set fire, when Jan Hus, the Czechoslovakian theologian, who translated Bible into Czechoslovakian language, for which was burned at stake, so he felt very great honor. So he practically breathed his last singing. He was a great singer. His name is, sometimes anglicized pronunciation, John Hus, Jan Hus. They always sometimes John Hus, H-U-S-S. He's a Czechoslovakian Protestant mystic who translated Bible into Czechoslovakian language, which was considered to be blasphemous and sacrilege by the Roman Catholic Church, for which he was of course burned at stake. So when they set fire, the king who actually wanted to support him but was helpless because his hands were tied. Please stop. So when the fire was set, and then he started singing. That's how singing he led. So you find in his life, so suffering was a matter of enjoyment for him. So it's very interesting. So you find this in all traditions. So, because all this, how are they able to face these obstacles? Because of Shraddha. Shraddha has such a universal appeal. And you find all great spiritual seekers or spiritual teachers in all traditions emphasize this important quality, Shraddha, because it takes care of a lot of internal problems and also external problems. As happened, internal problems means it gives you chitta prasada, as Vyasa says, pure mind, clarity of mind, total freedom from inner conflicts, distractions and doubts. That is a very important thing. total freedom from doubt is a great blessing for any spiritual seeker. You are doing something sacred, so that sense of sacredness, it rules out and removes all possibilities of doubt. So mind is focused. The third important quality, as I mentioned, is Smrti. So, Shraddha, Virya, Smrti. So, Smrti is literally, if you read Moni Williams, if you read any dictionary, you find the meaning is remembering. That's what it means. But the meaning is much more profound, as I already mentioned, in the context of mindfulness, or being in a state of perpetual awareness of our own mind. You cannot be aware of your mind unless you step out of the flow of mental thoughts. You cannot be witness unless you are somebody who is not involved in that particular litigation. A participant in a crime will not be called a witness. And a person who is not present there also cannot be witness. So you should be aware of your mind and its functions. At the same time, you should be a non-participant. That's the characteristic of a witness. So, this Smrti here means witness or mindfulness. Full of attention, mindfulness, but without being involved in it. Of course, Smrti has got different meanings in the yoga tradition also. It could mean Vidya Smrti, so what you studied, contemplated, you recollect, which may be helpful in some cases. Bhoga Smrti, sometimes, from the subconscious level, mind may bring forth to the surface thought currents, impressions which you rather not have, which you rather will not welcome, but still mind will not ask for permission. Memories won't ask for permission for coming to the surface, the conscious level. So that's why mind could be tormented also. Memory can be a terrible source of inner torment. But what is meant here by the word Smrti is mindfulness. That is complete attention. So, of course, you find this in the mystical tradition, Christian mystical tradition. Very often recollection and contemplation are used, one implying the other, interchangeably. So we will discuss this in the next class. And before that, an announcement before interaction. This is the last class before the winter recess. The next class will be on Friday, January the 26th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. So please remember, our next class will be on January 26th, 7:30. Now we will have interaction, 10 minutes. We can discuss what we discussed so far in this particular chapter. Listen.
Thank you. Arjuna says controlling the mind is like controlling the wind.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like. I've been meditating for a couple of years now. But do I just detach from it and witness, or does it end up being controlled? Because it seems like that's what Krishna is saying, is that you will have control over it. But still to this day, like you said, it just rises and falls, all kinds of thoughts and memories, and it's usually just things that make me feel better or more egotistical.
Yeah. When we complain about remembering what we really do not want to remember, we are referring to unwelcome memories, impressions. But we should remember that we also have pleasant, spiritually helpful memories. So those memories come from positive impressions, experiences that we already have. So we have to increase, proportionally we should increase the positive memories. So then they will become more dominant than the negative memories. So one way to do that is to read holy book, holy scriptures, or anything that is spiritually uplifting. I would tell you, instead of reading Yoga Sutra, we should try to read something that gives you real ideas which are sustaining, and then Yoga Sutra will help you. Yoga Sutra should not be considered to be a holy scripture like the Bhagavad Gita or Bible. That's a very important point to remember. Yoga Sutra helps you how to approach these holy books or holy ideas. So the best book I would recommend is, if you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That's it's a very remarkable, Gita is fine. The Gita, that is Gita Bhashya.
This is, Bhashya.
Yeah, it is Gita is a great book, no doubt. But it's an ancient scripture, which is really a great classic. So in Sri Ramakrishna's Gospel, you find many of these ideas mentioned in this book are explained and interpreted in a language that we will all quickly understand. That's a very interesting book. So the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, if you read, and reading should be accompanied by contemplating on what he's teaching about. And this contemplation will help you to go deeper into these teachings. Words and ideas sink deeper into our mental system when we think over what we read. And then you find, when you try to meditate, unpleasant, unwelcome thought currents come, these teachings also will come. So they will help you.
Okay.
So if you have got too many hooligans who are tormenting you, you get some good friends.
Yes.
Who will drive them away. So that's the only way to do that. So if the thief is following you, you call a policeman. They should drive away the thief.
Yeah.
So Sri Ramakrishna's teachings, this like policeman. So these unpleasant thought currents and ideas will be driven away by these pleasant and spiritually enriching ideas. That's the simple, direct, very useful method of creating good memories. You cannot wish away unpleasant memories. If you don't come to me, they will come much with greater enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So what you should do, you should take shelter with some good ideas. How to counter these negative thought currents with the help of positive thought currents. So I would say, for anyone living in this modern 21st century complex social structure, Sri Ramakrishna's teachings will be a great help, because he is interpreting the Gita.
Yeah.
As he interpreting the teachings of Gita, Yoga Sutras, Bible, and he accommodates all. He's a spiritual universalist. And you'll find you won't feel bored. In fact, that's another interesting thing. Sri Ramakrishna never bores you. He is also a very humorous person, and he discusses all the spiritual topics in a very simple, without using any technical language. So Gita, if you read, is a great book, no doubt, but there's a lot of technical vocabulary which may not be obvious to us. If you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, people like you are arguing with him, so you can join him.
Okay.
What do you mean by God? Why should you pray? I don't want to pray. And Sri Ramakrishna patiently listens to them and gives his own ideas. So you will find yourself sitting in front of in his room and discussing with him. That is the likeness of this great classic, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That will help you to create new, fresh, spiritually invigorating positive ideas. And when these positive ideas increase proportionately, negative ideas with back heart. That's the one. That's the best way. Right? That.
Swamiji, the separation of the human ego and the spiritual ego. Some say that the spiritual ego is more difficult to transform than the normal human ego.
But without spiritual ego, you won't be able to destroy the non-spiritual ego. So, at an advanced stage, you transcend both. See, to give an example, suppose we take a decision to do something noble, with meditation or prayer, whatever it is, and then if I take such a decision, I shall go meditate. It's not, I'm so egoistic as to decide I'll go and meditate, so I should not do that. That won't work. So, ego should be positively, should be spiritualized. Even ego can become a spiritual ego, and spiritual ego is your best friend who will take you beyond itself. Srila also call it Vidyamaya. Vidyamaya, Vidyamaya, Vidyamaya. Avidyamaya means again this kind of ego, negative ego. It takes a person in the wrong direction of worldliness and self-destruction in a spiritual sense. So you have to come out of that. For that you need a positive ego. The positive ego means strong decision. The positive spiritual ego which enabled the great mystics to face obstacles, to face spiritual seekers to overcome their own internal conflicts and doubts. Without a strong will, iron will, nobody can even take the spiritual mind. I would be surprised. One very important characteristic that Lord Krishna lists in his 12th chapter is, who is an ideal devotee, who is the best devotee? Santushta sadadam yogi yadatma dridadisya. Dridadisya means a person of steely mind, iron determination. The strong will and iron determination in the right direction. So, an ideal devotee should have a strong mind, an iron will. Because that iron will is not ego. I can substantiate this with a statement from our scripture, which Sri Ramakrishna actually refers to. In answer to a question like this, somebody asked this question. Then Sri Ramakrishna sometimes humorously says, well, a master asked his servant to bring a glass of water, or maybe a teacher asked his disciple, an old man asked his young disciple to bring a glass of water. He was thirsty. Oh, I won't bring you water because if I bring water, I'll be proud I have brought you drinking water. So I won't give you drinking. And he's very humorous way, he says, has very ridiculous meaning. Now coming to the subject, Sri Ramakrishna says, he refers to a very interesting verse. It is from the Ramayana. So, somebody asked Hanuman, he was a great spiritual teacher, mentioned Ramayana literature, asked this question. How do you, even Rama himself asked him this question, how do you relate yourself to me? Then he told, when I think of myself as this bus, as mind body mechanism, then I think of me as your servant. When I think of me as an individual soul, then I think I am part, you are whole. When I think of myself as the all-pervading Atman, then you and me are one. So, when you talk about ego, then Sri Ramakrishna says, if they use in very strong language, this rascal ego. That's how you find in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna was very direct, and that's a charm and beauty and the greatness of the scripture. Sri Ramakrishna is, If this ego doesn't run away, go away, then keep this rascal ego as a servant of God. That's what Srila says. So this rascal ego can become a servant of God. So that's why, Jiva Buddhya Dasosmi. Mean as a body, I am your servant. You are the master, I am the servant. Jiva Buddhya Tudam Sarva. Jiva Buddhya means as an individual soul, I think I am part, you are whole. And Atma Buddhya Tamaiva Asmi. As Atman Tamaiva, I mean I and you are one. This is the main Nishitamati. This is my understanding. He says, so long as you feel egoistic, try to be egoistic. Well, I shall read the scripture. I shall read a pure life. I shall meditate. I shall pray. That is how this rascal ego can be made a servant of God. That's what Sri Ramakrishna said. That's why the best modern classic for people living in our times, Sri Ramakrishna's gospel is that way very unique. Okay. So now, please remember our next class will be on January the 26th, 2018, 7:30, and I think we will all meet again for the January 1st program, and all of you, I wish all of you a happy Christmas. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ram Krishna Namaste.